You are staring at an application for a local public housing authority, or PHA. A PHA is a local government agency that manages housing assistance. But looking at the paperwork, it is entirely unclear if you are applying for a portable voucher to rent a house or a fixed spot in a government-owned apartment building. The confusion is intentional. Both systems share a baseline. They are both funded by the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, and they are both administered locally by that same PHA. They also use the same financial math. In both systems, the tenant's out-of-pocket rent is capped at approximately 30% of their annual gross income, or AGI. Finally, both programs target the exact same demographics: low-income renters, the elderly, and individuals with disabilities. Because the financial inputs and targeted groups are identical, the actual difference between these programs lies entirely in building ownership and your ability to move. Measured historical tone. Federal housing assistance began during the Great Depression. The primary crisis was a severe physical shortage of housing units for millions of unemployed Americans. To solve that physical shortage, Franklin D. Roosevelt championed the Housing Act of 1937. This established the public housing model, directing the government to physically build, own, and manage apartment units for low-income citizens. By the 1970s, the landscape had shifted. Studies showed the worst problem afflicting low-income renters was no longer substandard or missing buildings, but the overwhelming percentage of their income required to pay market rent. Congress pivoted by passing the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974. This legislation created the Section 8 program, designed to subsidize rent in the private sector rather than build new government facilities. Public housing solves for a lack of physical supply. Section 8 solves for a lack of financial purchasing power in the private market. In the public housing model, the local PHA acts as both the government administrator and your direct landlord. The physical building belongs to the government. Your rent is determined by calculating the total tenant payment, or TTP. Because it is strictly based on your income, this provides a guaranteed, mathematically predictable rent price every single month. The primary advantage here is certainty. You completely bypass the private rental market. You do not have to negotiate with private property management companies, pay application fees, or convince a landlord to take a chance on you. But that certainty requires a heavy trade-off: zero geographic portability. The government subsidy is legally attached to the concrete walls of the unit, not to you as a human being. If you leave the apartment to move to a different neighborhood, you leave the financial assistance behind. Public housing acts as a shield against private market discrimination and rising rents, but it demands the total sacrifice of neighborhood choice and geographic mobility. Section 8, officially known as the Housing Choice Voucher Program, flips that dynamic. The government issues a portable voucher directly to you, the tenant, to use in the private real estate market. The financial flow involves three parties. You pay your 30% income portion directly to the private landlord, and the PHA wires the remaining balance directly to that landlord's bank account. This chart shows how the subsidy scales by bedroom count. The highlighted row indicates fair market rents, or FMRs. HUD uses these localized price caps to limit the maximum subsidy a voucher will pay out, ensuring the government isn't subsidizing luxury penthouses. This table shows area median income limits. To qualify for those FMR-capped vouchers, your household must fall into the very low income tier at 50.
Once you have the voucher, the clock starts ticking. You typically have 60 to 120 days to find a private landlord willing to accept it. Then, the specific apartment or house you choose must pass a rigorous annual PHA safety and sanitation inspection. Section 8 offers the freedom to choose your own neighborhood and home type, but it transfers the grueling logistical burden of finding and securing compliant housing squarely onto your shoulders. Section 8 also includes a feature called portability. After establishing a minimum residency period, often 12 months, you can transfer your voucher to a completely different city or state and continue receiving assistance. However, moving to a new state means you are subject to the receiving housing authority's specific fair market rent caps and bedroom size rules. Moving to a higher cost area requires careful pre-planning to ensure your voucher covers the new local rents. The voucher system also adapts for specific populations. HUD Voucher is a specialized carve-out of the Section 8 program, specifically designed for homeless veterans, initiated right at local VA medical centers. HUD Voucher pairs the private rental voucher from HUD with mandatory clinical services and case management provided directly by the Department of Veterans Affairs. This document details the Section 8 homeownership option. It shows that, instead of rent, vouchers can actually be used to pay monthly mortgage principal, interest, and property taxes for first-time homebuyers. The barriers to entry for homeownership are strict. As shown here, it requires full-time, continuous employment for at least 1 year and a minimum qualified income of at least $10,300, excluding welfare assistance. There is also a financial recapture risk. If the family sells or refinances the home within the first 10 years, the government will claw back a portion of the assistance provided from the sale proceeds. Section 8 is a highly adaptable financial instrument. It scales from basic apartment rentals to targeted veteran rehabilitation, all the way to wealth-building home ownership. Demand for federal housing vastly outpaces supply. Waitlists in major metropolitan areas range from several months to several years. Many are entirely closed to new applicants or operate on random lottery systems. Because wait times are so severe, applicants often apply to multiple local PHAs simultaneously, assuming cross-jurisdiction applications are legally permitted in their area. Reaching the top of the list triggers a rigorous background screening. Housing authorities typically look back 3 to 7 years to check for criminal convictions, property damage, or past evictions from federally assisted housing. Certain offenses result in a permanent, lifetime disqualification from both housing programs. This includes individuals subject to a lifetime sex offender registration and anyone convicted of producing methamphetamine on the premises of federally assisted housing. Federal housing assistance is not an emergency rescue mechanism for immediate eviction. It is a multi-year administrative marathon that requires extreme patience and careful maintenance of your background record. Ultimately, you have to choose between the absolute certainty of a government building and the mobility of a private market voucher. This maps options by 2 variables: leasing effort on the vertical axis and mobility on the horizontal. Public housing lands bottom left, ideal for long-term stability without market rejection. Section 8 lands top right, best for those needing flexibility who will hustle for a landlord. Before spending years on the wrong waitlist, evaluate your family's actual need to move and choose the quadrant that fits your reality.